Snow had a way of making everything quieter, even rejection. Sarah stood just outside the iron gates, her breath rising in thin white clouds, fingers curled so tightly around her worn tote bag that her knuckles burned. The gate behind her clicked shut with a final sound that echoed longer than it should. She didn't turn around. She already knew what she'd see if she did. The mansion glowing warm and golden. The place she had cleaned, cooked in, kept alive. The place that no longer wanted her. Her phone buzzed once in her pocket. Not a call. Not an apology. Just a bank alert. $0 pending. He hadn't even paid her. Sarah swallowed hard, forcing the lump in her throat down. Crying here would feel like begging. And she'd promised herself long ago, never beg where she wasn't wanted. Next time, he'd said casually, barely looking up from his tablet, try not to get sick during the holidays. Next time, as if there would be one. Her fever had started that morning. A dull ache behind her eyes. The kind that makes light feel sharp and movement heavy. She'd mentioned it softly while mopping the marble floors, hoping, just hoping, for permission to rest. Instead, he'd sighed. You people always have something. She finished her shift anyway. Every room, every staircase, every reminder that she was invisible unless she slowed down. When she reached for her pay envelope, he pulled it back. I'm docking you. Poor performance. She hadn't argued, just nodded, because arguing never changed anything. It only made men like him angry. And angry men didn't just fire you. They erased you. Now here she was. Christmas Eve. No job. No money. No place to sleep. The bus stop down the street flickered weakly, its shelter light humming like it might give up at any second. Sarah dragged her feet toward it, her legs trembling more from exhaustion than cold. She sat on the frozen bench and hugged her coat tighter. Thin, threadbare, not enough. The city moved around her, indifferent. Cars passed. Laughter spilled from nearby restaurants. Somewhere, music played, cheerful and cruel. Her stomach twisted painfully. She hadn't eaten since morning. A cough tore out of her chest suddenly, sharp enough to make her bend forward. She pressed her sleeve to her mouth, breathing through the dizziness that followed. Just get through the night, she told herself. Morning will figure itself out. She tilted her head back against the cold metal and closed her eyes. That was when headlights slowed. Not rushing, not swerving, stopping. Sarah opened her eyes cautiously. A black SUV idled at the curb, sleek and quiet, the kind of car that didn't belong in this part of the street. The window in the back rolled down just a little. Warm light spilled out. A child's face appeared. Big eyes. Blue. Serious in a way children's eyes shouldn't have to be. Daddy. The little girl said softly, pressing her mittened hands to the glass. She looks cold. Sarah froze. The driver's door opened. A man stepped out into the snow, tall, well-dressed, his coat expensive but worn like he didn't care who noticed. He looked at Sarah, not through her, not past her, but at her. Really looked. You okay? He asked. It wasn't pity in his voice. It wasn't command either. Just a question. Sarah hesitated. Years of caution rose up automatically. Say less. Need less. Expect nothing. I'm fine, she said, though her teeth chattered enough to betray her. The man's gaze flicked briefly to her hands. Red, swollen, bare. Then to the thin coat. Then back to her face. No one's fine sitting out here on Christmas Eve, he said quietly. The little girl leaned farther out the window. We can give her the blanket, she offered, hopeful. The man smiled faintly at that. A real one. Brief, but real. He turned back to Sarah. My name's Nathan, he said. And this is my daughter, Emily. Sarah swallowed. Sarah. Silence settled. Not awkward, not heavy. Just waiting. Nathan glanced toward the empty street, then back at her. Do you have somewhere to go tonight? There it was. The question she'd been dreading. The one that turned dignity into a balancing act. Sarah shook her head slowly. I will. Not now. Not yet. But eventually. Nathan studied her for a long moment. Then he exhaled, like someone making a decision they hadn't planned on. Get in the car, he said gently. Let's get you warm. Sarah stiffened. Every warning she'd ever learned screamed at once. I'm not asking for anything, he added quickly. Just help. For tonight. The little girl smiled at her. Not polite. Not curious. Relieved. Sarah hesitated only a second longer before standing, her legs wobbling beneath her. The door opened. Heat wrapped around her like something she'd forgotten existed. As she slid into the seat, Emily draped a blanket over her shoulders with careful hands. There, she said proudly. That's better. Sarah's throat tightened painfully. She looked out the window as the car pulled away, the iron gates disappearing behind them. She didn't know it yet, but the night she was erased was also the night everything began. Chapter 2. Sarah woke up warm. That was the first thing that confused her. The second was silence, not the brittle, hollow kind she was used to, but the thick, cushioned kind that felt expensive. Like the air itself had been trained not to make noise. She opened her eyes slowly. The ceiling above her was white, clean, high. A soft glow came from recessed lights she hadn't turned on. The sheets tucked around her were heavy but gentle, the kind that didn't cling or scratch. For a split second, panic surged. Where am I? Her body answered before her mind could. The fever was still there, dull but quieter now. Her throat felt less raw. Her hands, warm. She pushed herself up, heart thudding. The room was large but simple. A neatly made bed. A side table with a glass of water and 2 pills beside it. A folded sweater draped over the chair. Beige walls. No personal photos. Like a room meant for guests who didn't stay long. The door creaked softly as it opened. Sarah tensed instinctively. Nathan stood there, already dressed, tie knotted with easy precision. He paused when he saw her awake. Hey, he said. You're up. She swallowed. Where? My house, he said gently, stepping no closer than the doorway. You passed out in the car. Fever spiked. I didn't feel right dropping you at a shelter like that. Shelter. The word landed heavier than she expected. She nodded slowly, pulling the blanket tighter around her shoulders even though she wasn't cold anymore. I didn't mean to cause trouble, she said automatically. Nathan frowned, not sharply, but like someone hearing something that didn't sit right. You didn't. There was a pause. Emily's at school, he added. She wanted to stay home with you. I convinced her otherwise. Sarah's chest tightened at the thought. The way the child's small hands had tucked the blanket around her shoulders the night before came back vividly. She didn't have to. She wanted to, Nathan said. That's kind of her thing. She didn't ask. He set a bowl of soup in front of her, steam curling upward. The smell alone made her throat tighten again. Careful, he said. It's hot. She nodded and took a small sip. Warmth spread through her slowly, like her body had been waiting for permission to relax. They ate mostly in silence. Not awkward, just careful. So, Nathan said eventually, leaning back against the counter, arms crossed loosely. You worked as a housekeeper? Yes, Sarah replied. Live out. Temporary placements. How long? Long enough. He nodded once. Didn't push. What about family? He asked, choosing the word gently. Sarah's spoon paused midair. Not close by, she said. Another pause settled. Then Nathan spoke again, slower this time. Emily's mother died 2 years ago. Sarah looked up instinctively. I'm sorry, she said immediately. He nodded, eyes fixed somewhere past her. So is she, even if she doesn't say it. Something in his voice cracked just slightly. Not enough to show, but enough to feel. She doesn't do well with people leaving, he added. Sarah's chest tightened again. I don't plan to, she stopped herself. Plan what? Stay? Go? Either sounded dangerous. Nathan seemed to sense the shift. I'm not offering charity, he said carefully. And I'm not asking for anything you don't want to give. She waited. My daughter needs stability, he continued. Routine. Someone who doesn't disappear. The air in the room felt heavier now. And you, he said, meeting her eyes fully for the first time, need a place to land. Even if it's temporary. Sarah's heart pounded so loudly she was sure he could hear it. What are you saying? She asked. Nathan exhaled slowly. I'm saying stay, he said. For now, get better. Help around the house if you want. If not, that's fine too. No pressure. No contracts. Sarah stared at him, stunned. This wasn't how things worked. People like him didn't make offers like this. Not without conditions. Not without power attached. I don't want to be a burden, she said softly. Nathan shook his head. You won't be. She searched his face for something. Pity, expectation, ownership. Found none. Just tired sincerity. Upstairs, the house settled quietly around them, like it was holding its breath. Sarah looked back down at the soup, then at the drawing on the table. The blurry third figure. She didn't know why, but something inside her whispered, be careful. This could change everything. And for the first time in a long while, she wasn't sure if that was a warning or hope. Amara woke to the faint hum of morning sunlight spilling across the floor. The room smelled faintly of cinnamon and something clean, like fresh sheets. She blinked once, then again, trying to remember where she was. Then she heard it. A small, deliberate voice. Sarah? Her heart skipped. Not Nathan. Not a stranger. A child. Emily stood in the doorway, oversized slippers sliding slightly on the polished floor. Her cheeks were pink from sleep, hair tangled in gentle waves, and in her small hands, she held a mug, too big for her fingers. I made this for you, she said simply. Amara's throat tightened. She took the mug cautiously. Steam curled lazily from the hot chocolate inside. It smelled sweet, rich, and safe. Thank you, Amara whispered. Emily stepped closer, tilting her head as though she were inspecting a puzzle. You're staying, right? The little girl asked, almost accusingly. You didn't run away in the night? Amara shook her head. I didn't. Emily nodded seriously, like this confirmed something important. Then, with surprising boldness, she plopped down on the edge of the bed. Good. I didn't want to be alone. Amara froze. She had expected a shy child. Hesitant. Guarded. Not this, straightforward. I didn't know, Amara said, words catching. I'm not supposed to, you know. Emily rolled her eyes. You're not a babysitter. You're you. You mean? Amara's voice trembled slightly. I mean, Mom, Emily said, matter-of-factly, as if declaring something that had always been true. Amara's spoonful of chocolate felt suddenly heavy in her hands. She couldn't speak. She couldn't move. She had no words for the gravity of them. The way the word Mom sounded on the lips of a child who had survived loss with a strange mix of courage and defiance. You can be Mom, Emily added softly, even if Daddy says stuff. You can be Mom until forever. Amara wanted to cry. She wanted to run. She wanted to scream that she wasn't ready, that she wasn't enough. Instead, she just sat there, silent, feeling like she had been given something no one had offered her in years, something she didn't even know she wanted until now. Nathan appeared in the doorway then, pausing just long enough to see Emily perched on the bed, Amara clutching the mug, trembling. Breakfast is ready, he said, voice low. And I think you two have some catching up to do. Emily jumped off the bed, dragging Amara gently by the hand toward the kitchen. You don't have to, Amara murmured. I know, Emily replied, tugging harder. But you said you were staying. The sound of laughter followed, light, unexpected, and almost foreign in its warmth. Amara let herself be led. She let the little hand guide her as the house stirred to life around them. And somewhere in the quiet moments of clinking dishes and the smell of eggs and toast, she realized this house wasn't hers. Not yet, but for the first time in years, it might feel like home. And Emily had already decided that she belonged there. Amara swallowed hard, eyes filling, and somewhere deep in her chest, hope whispered, softly, but unmistakably. Maybe, just maybe, this Christmas hadn't erased her after all. The sunlight in the kitchen felt unreal. It hit the counters and spilled across the floor in golden rectangles, but Sarah hardly noticed. Emily was buzzing around like a tiny whirlwind, setting out plates, pouring juice, and humming a song Sarah didn't recognize, but it was cheerful, almost defiant. You like cinnamon rolls? Emily asked, glancing up at her with big blue eyes. I picked them out yesterday. Sarah's throat tightened. She shook her head quickly. No, you don't have to. Yes, I do, Emily said firmly. It's Christmas. You have to eat. The words hung in the air. A little command, a little plea. Sarah felt herself laughing softly, despite the ache in her chest. Nathan appeared then, leaning against the doorway with a mug of coffee. He watched quietly as Emily fussed over Sarah. You know, he said finally, she can probably make her own cinnamon rolls. Emily shot him a glare sharp enough to cut glass. Not today. Today she's ours. Nathan raised his hands in surrender, smirking. Fair enough. Sarah sipped the hot chocolate Emily had made for her, warmth spreading through her chest in more ways than one. She realized she hadn't had a proper Christmas morning in years. Not really. Not since, well, she didn't want to think about that. She looked at Emily, who was kneeling on a chair to put syrup on pancakes, tiny curls bouncing with every move. Your dad. He's really protective, Sarah said cautiously. Emily straightened, hands on her hips. I don't think it's called protective. I think it's called smart. Sarah laughed softly. Emily's blunt honesty was refreshing and frightening. She had no idea how attached she was already becoming to this little human. Breakfast passed in a flurry of chatter, syrupy fingers, and laughter. Nathan watched mostly in silence, sipping coffee, occasionally exchanging a glance with Sarah that was loaded with unspoken questions. After clearing the dishes, Emily bounced towards Sarah with a stack of papers. I drew a lot last night. You have to see. Sarah sat on the couch, trying to hide the lump forming in her throat. Emily flopped beside her, handing over sheet after sheet. One drawing caught her attention immediately. It was Emily, Nathan, and a third figure, tall, soft-featured, drawn with care. Underneath, in Emily's neat, looping handwriting, Mom. Sarah stared, mouth slightly open. Emily's hand squeezed hers. See? That's you. That's my mom. Sarah's heart felt like it might burst. She wanted to speak, but the words caught in her throat. She had no idea how to respond. She wasn't ready. She wasn't supposed to be ready. Emily. She whispered finally, voice trembling. Yes. Why would you call me that? Emily shrugged. I serious. Because I like you. And you stayed. And that's what moms do. The words were innocent, but heavy. Heavy enough to make Sarah's chest ache with a mixture of fear and longing. Nathan cleared his throat softly from the doorway. Breakfast is done. And I think Emily has made her decision. Sarah's eyes shot to him. What decision? Nathan stepped forward, carefully choosing his words. That you stay? At least until she feels okay. We don't need to rush anything else. Sarah felt the room tilt slightly. Stay? She was not supposed to stay. Not in a house like this. Not in a life like this. But then she looked at Emily's face, tiny hands clutching her drawings, hope and certainty shining in her blue eyes, and something inside her shifted. Maybe staying wasn't just a choice. Maybe it was the first real chance she'd had in years to belong somewhere. Okay, she said softly. Emily squealed, jumping up and hugging her fiercely. Yes, you're my mom. Nathan exhaled, relief hiding behind a slight smile. Careful, he said. She's contagious with that kind of excitement. Sarah laughed through tears she didn't bother holding back. And for the first time in years, the house didn't feel empty. It felt alive. But even as she let herself relax, a small, cautious part of her whispered, this isn't just about Christmas. It's about a family. And families come with complications. And somewhere deep inside, Sarah knew Nathan had rules. And secrets. And expectations. This Christmas morning was only the beginning. Chapter 3. The house was quieter now. Christmas morning had passed, and the soft hum of the heater filled the gaps between the sounds of dishes drying and the occasional tap of Emily's sneakers on the hardwood floor. Sarah carried a basket of laundry toward the guest room, careful not to disturb the fragile warmth that had settled in the house. She had spent the morning doing the smallest tasks, folding towels, putting away dishes, organizing drawers, trying to convince herself that staying here didn't mean stepping into someone else's world. But Nathan's presence was impossible to ignore. He emerged from the study, his expression unreadable, dark eyes softened only slightly by the morning light. You've been up since, what, 6? He asked, voice calm but carrying that subtle edge that reminded Sarah why she was cautious around him. Something like that, she replied, her hands brushing against the folded towels. Emily keeps me busy. She does, Nathan said, leaning against the doorframe. And she's persistent. You'll learn that fast. Sarah nodded, silently acknowledging the warning in his tone. He didn't need to spell it out. She already understood. There were unspoken rules in this house. She had already broken a few just by breathing in someone else's space. You don't have to do everything, Nathan continued, his tone softening slightly. Just keep your balance. Emily is, he hesitated, spirited, and I have my hands full. I can't watch every little thing she does. I can manage, Sarah said quickly, a little defensively. She realized she was tense, too used to being invisible, too used to being expected to manage, anticipate, and disappear without notice. Nathan's eyes met hers, sharp but not unkind. Good. Just remember, rules here exist for a reason. Not because I'm strict. Because Emily. He trailed off, swallowing. Needs structure. And so do you. Sarah paused mid-step, folding the last towel slowly. Structure. Responsibility. Boundaries. She had been living without all of those for years. And now, here they were, offered in the same breath as kindness. Before she could respond, Emily bounced into the room, eyes wide and mischievous. Sarah, she whispered urgently, I need help. What is it? Sarah asked, setting the basket down. Emily gestured toward the staircase. Mommy, I think my cat got stuck in the Christmas tree. Sarah blinked. Your cat? Emily nodded furiously. Mittens. She climbed up the tree last night when I wasn't looking. And now she's stuck. Sarah exhaled, already moving. Okay, let's fix this before anything breaks. The sight of Emily scampering ahead, chattering instructions and laughing nervously, made Sarah's chest tighten. This was not the quiet, controlled house she had feared. It was alive, messy, complicated, and she was part of it now. Nathan appeared at the bottom of the staircase, arms crossed, watching silently. He didn't intervene, didn't warn, just observed. And Sarah realized this was part of the rules too. She had to learn how to navigate without being told everything. With careful steps, Sarah reached the Christmas tree. Sure enough, Mittens, the small gray cat, perched precariously near the top, tail twitching, eyes wide. Emily's hands fluttered uselessly in the air, panic clear on her small face. Don't worry, Emily, Sarah said gently, climbing carefully. I've got this. She grabbed the cat, carefully lowering her down. Emily let out a relieved cheer and hugged Sarah's arm. You saved Christmas, she exclaimed. Sarah laughed softly, letting herself be caught in the joy. Just for now, she said, brushing the hair from Emily's face. Nathan cleared his throat from below. Rule number 1, he said lightly. Don't destroy the tree or the house. Rule number 2, Sarah, don't get too used to saving us all. You'll get blamed eventually. Sarah froze for a second, then laughed nervously. Noted. The three of them looked at each other, a strange, unspoken truce forming in the air. Sarah realized, with a quiet pang, that she was already starting to care. And for the first time, she understood that staying wasn't just a choice anymore. It was a responsibility. And responsibilities, they came with consequences. Even in a house that smelled like cinnamon and hope, the rules Nathan didn't say aloud were already settling around her like invisible chains. Sarah knew she had stepped into something bigger than herself, something that could either save her or break her entirely. The house had quieted again, but the calm felt fragile. Sarah moved through the living room, straightening cushions and wiping smudges from the glass table. Every step made her hyper-aware of her place here, neither a guest nor a stranger, but something in between. She wasn't used to being seen, and yet, Nathan's eyes seemed to follow her, always observing, always measuring. Emily darted past her, squealing with delight over a small ornament she'd rescued from the tree the night before. Mom, look, I made it perfect. Sarah knelt to inspect the little craft, a crookedly glued star atop a handmade angel, but smiled anyway. It's perfect, she said. Her voice was soft, warm, and Emily beamed like the world had just been made right. Nathan stepped into the room then, tie loosened, sleeves rolled up. He carried a folder of papers, but his focus shifted immediately to Sarah. You're doing a lot, he said quietly, and I appreciate it, but don't overextend yourself. You need balance. Sarah froze for a second. Balance. Another rule, unspoken, but crystal clear. She nodded. I'll try. Nathan's expression softened slightly. It's not just about chores. It's about Emily and me. I can't explain it all, but some things happen here in silence. You'll have to notice for yourself. The words were vague, protective, heavy with implication. Sarah felt her stomach twist. I'm learning, she said carefully, unsure if that was enough. Nathan didn't answer immediately. Instead, he gave a small nod and walked toward the study, leaving her to her thoughts. Emily climbed onto the couch beside Sarah, small hands tugging at her sleeve. Mom, she whispered, are we going to stay like this forever? Sarah blinked, caught off guard. Like what? Like you being here, Emily said. I don't want you to go. Ever. Sarah's chest tightened. She had tried to imagine staying in this house, in this strange new life, but Emily's words, they made it real. Scary real. I don't know, Sarah admitted softly. I'm not sure about anything yet. Emily's blue eyes narrowed in determination. Then make sure you do. Don't leave. Promise me. Sarah swallowed. Promises were heavy things. She wasn't ready, but the idea of leaving felt heavier. Later, when Nathan returned from a call, he found Sarah helping Emily color in a new drawing. She didn't look up immediately, but when she did, the intensity in Nathan's eyes made her flinch slightly. Emily's attached, he said plainly. And so are you, I can tell. That's fine. But understand this, attachment comes with responsibility. You'll be tested. Sarah nodded slowly, unsure if she wanted to ask what he meant. Emily giggled beside her, unaware of the tension. I want a new ornament, she exclaimed. Let's make one. Nathan's gaze softened, just slightly, as he watched the two of them. Then he looked at Sarah again. You'll see, he said quietly. I don't make life easy here. For anyone. Sarah felt a shiver, not from cold, but from realization. Nathan's rules weren't just about Emily. They were about him, his past, and whatever mistakes he had yet to reveal. And somewhere in the corner of her mind, Sarah knew this wasn't just a temporary stay. It was the beginning of a life she couldn't step back from. A life where every smile, every small act of care came with weight. A life that could save her or destroy her entirely. The evening fell softly over the house, painting the living room in golden lamplight. Snow continued to drift outside, muffling the world beyond the windows. Sarah sat on the couch, Emily curled beside her, a pile of colored pencils scattered across the coffee table. Laughter had filled the room for hours, the kind that made Sarah forget, briefly, the storm of her past life. But when Nathan appeared from the study, something in his expression made her pause. Dinner's ready, he said, but his eyes lingered on her longer than necessary. Not with warmth, but with calculation. Sarah straightened instinctively. She had learned quickly that Nathan noticed everything. Small gestures, hesitant glances, the faintest change in tone. Emily jumped up. I'm starving. 5 more minutes, Sarah said gently, trying to keep the peace. Nathan watched them, silent, his jaw tight. Then he spoke quietly, almost to himself. You're not used to this kind of household, are you? Sarah hesitated. No, I'm not. Good, he said, finally meeting her eyes. Because this one is messy, not just with objects, with people and feelings. It's not simple. Sarah nodded, unsure if she should ask what he meant. Emily tugged at her sleeve. Mom, come on. Reluctantly, Sarah rose, but Nathan's voice stopped her. Sarah, a word? She followed him to the study, the soft click of the door closing behind them heavier than any lock. Sit, Nathan said, gesturing to a chair. He remained standing, leaning slightly against the desk. I need you to understand something before you get too comfortable here. Sarah sat, heart thumping. She had no idea what rules she might be breaking or what expectations were waiting for her. I want to trust you with Emily, Nathan began carefully. And I want you to care for her. But you also need to know, this isn't charity. It's not a test of kindness. He paused, searching for words. It's complicated. My past, my mistakes, they affect her. And they will affect you, too, if you're not careful. Sarah swallowed hard. I understand. I want to help. Nathan's gaze softened, though briefly. I know, and that's why you're here. But it won't be easy. You'll see sides of me and Emily that are raw, unguarded, and sometimes unfair. I can handle it, Sarah said, though her voice trembled slightly. She wasn't sure if she could. Nathan nodded once. Good. I hope you can. As she left the study, the house felt different. Not threatening, exactly, but alive in ways she wasn't prepared for. Emily was waiting in the hallway, small hands gripping the ends of Sarah's sweater. Mom, are we going to have fun tonight? Sarah knelt and hugged her tightly. Yes, we are. But as they joined Nathan at the dinner table, Sarah realized the truth. Fun here was never simple. Every laugh, every smile, was layered with expectation, with hidden rules she hadn't yet learned. And for the first time, she wondered, if she misstepped, even once, would Emily's trust disappear like snow melting in sunlight? Dinner passed in tense conversation, polite laughter, and stolen glances. Nathan's phone buzzed twice, and each time he excused himself, leaving Sarah and Emily alone. Emily leaned forward, whispering urgently, Mom, he's hiding something, isn't he? Sarah's heart skipped. Hiding? Emily nodded, wide-eyed. Yeah, the way he talks sometimes, like he's scared someone might find out. About stuff. About him. Sarah felt a chill creep over her. Nathan's past had been a shadow from the start, but hearing it from Emily, so innocent, so perceptive, made it real. We'll figure it out together, Sarah whispered, squeezing Emily's hand. We just have to be careful. Emily nodded, trusting her words completely. Later that night, After Emily fell asleep, Sarah sat by the window, looking out at the quiet snow. Nathan's warning echoed in her mind. This house wasn't just walls and furniture. It was a web of secrets, mistakes, and unspoken rules. And Sarah had already stepped into it. There was no going back now. The house was quiet in the late afternoon, but Sarah could feel it humming with tension. Emily had gone outside to play in the snow, squealing in delight with her little sled, and Nathan was buried in his work in the study. Sarah wandered the hallway, idly straightening a picture frame, but her mind refused to rest. Nathan's warnings, Emily's intuition, and the fragile peace of the house were pressing down on her. She heard a soft thump behind her and spun. Emily stood at the top of the staircase, cheeks flushed, snow still clinging to her mittens. "Mom," she called. "Nathan yelled at me." Sarah's stomach sank. "He what?" Emily's big blue eyes filled with tears. "He said I shouldn't touch the ornaments, that I was going to ruin Christmas. But I didn't. I was careful." Sarah's chest tightened. She knew Nathan had rules, but she hadn't realized how strict he could be. And seeing Emily so small and scared, it made her blood boil. She took Emily's hand. "Come on, let's talk to him," she said gently. "I'll help you explain." They found Nathan in the study, frowning over a stack of documents. He looked up as they entered. "Mom," Emily said, her voice trembling. "I didn't mean to mess up. I was just trying to help." Nathan's eyes softened slightly at the sight of his daughter's tears, but the edge in his voice remained. "Emily, rules exist for a reason. Some things aren't about helping, they're about safety." Sarah stepped forward. "Nathan," she was trying. "She didn't break anything. Can't we just let her know without yelling?" He hesitated, jaw tight. Then he exhaled slowly, tension leaving his shoulders in one long breath. I didn't mean to scare her. I worry." Emily's tears turned into sniffles, and she buried her face in Sarah's shoulder. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Sarah stroked her hair gently. "It's okay, baby. We're okay." Nathan rubbed the back of his neck, clearly frustrated with himself. I just don't want anything to happen to her. Not after everything." Sarah understood. Nathan's past, the way he guarded Emily, the secrets he carried, they all made him fierce, protective, sometimes unfair. But she also realized something. If she stayed here, she wasn't just part of the household. She was part of this family. And that meant navigating rules she didn't fully understand, fears she couldn't see, and a man whose heart was both open and locked. Later, when Emily was asleep, Sarah lingered in the kitchen, trying to process the day. Nathan appeared silently, standing across from her with a quiet presence that made her tense. "You handled her well," he said finally. Sarah gave a small, tired smile. "I'm trying." He nodded, gaze lingering. "I don't make this easy for anyone, especially not for people I care about." The words hung in the air. Sarah realized then that staying wasn't just a choice anymore. It was a challenge, a test, a chance to prove herself not just to Nathan or Emily, but to herself. Outside, the snow fell silently, covering the world in white. Inside, the house held its breath. And for the first time, Sarah understood that in this home, mistakes weren't just accidents. They were lessons. And lessons came with consequences. The evening had a sharp edge to it, colder than any winter night Sarah could remember. Snow swirled outside the windows like tiny whispers, covering the world in a quiet that made the house feel unusually loud. Sarah was in the kitchen, washing dishes from dinner, when she heard the muffled sound of Nathan's phone vibrating on the counter. He didn't move to answer immediately. Instead, he stared at the screen, jaw tight, hands trembling just slightly. Curiosity and concern pulled at Sarah, but she stayed silent. Some things weren't hers to touch. Emily appeared in the doorway, her eyes wide. "Mom, he looks mad." Sarah froze. "He's just stressed, baby. Go play. I'll be right there." But Emily didn't move. She tilted her head, sensing the tension before words could form. "He's hiding something, isn't he?" Sarah swallowed. Emily was perceptive, too perceptive, and she knew better than to lie to a child. "I don't know yet," she admitted softly. "But we'll figure it out. Together." Nathan's voice cut through the silence, low and controlled. "Sarah, I need you to stay out of this." She turned toward him. His usual calm demeanor was gone, replaced by a rare edge she hadn't seen before. Something in his eyes hinted at frustration, maybe even fear. "I'm not," Sarah began, but he interrupted. This isn't about you. It's about Emily. And the past I can't fix. Sarah's heart tightened. She had known Nathan carried burdens, but hearing it finally spoken, he wasn't just protective. He was haunted. And it wasn't only Emily he was worried about. It was the consequences of his own mistakes. Emily, who had crept silently behind Sarah, now whispered, "Mom." He's scared. Really scared. Sarah knelt to meet her daughter's gaze. "I know, baby. But we can help him. We just have to be patient." Nathan's voice softened slightly, though his stance remained tense. "You think this is simple? That my mistakes don't affect her? Every decision I've made, every choice I've tried to erase, it's all on the line now. And you, staying here, makes it more complicated than you realize." Sarah's chest ached. "Nathan, I'm not going anywhere. Emily needs stability, and so do you. We can face it together." For a moment, the room was silent. Snow tapped softly against the window, Emily's tiny figure watching from the hallway, and Nathan's face softened, but only slightly. "I hope you know what you're doing," he said finally, voice low. "Because once this house accepts you, there's no leaving without breaking someone's heart." Sarah swallowed hard. She realized then that her decision to stay wasn't just about kindness or shelter or even love. It was about courage, about stepping into a life where every action mattered, every word mattered. Every choice could either protect or shatter the fragile bonds forming here. Emily tugged at her hand, breaking the heavy silence. "Mom, let's go build a snowman." Sarah smiled faintly, letting the warmth of the child's innocence wash over her. "Yes, let's." But even as they stepped outside into the snow, Sarah couldn't shake Nathan's words. The house wasn't just a home, it was a test. And with secrets lurking in every shadow, Sarah knew the final chapter of this story was approaching. One wrong step, and everything could came crashing down. The first rays of Christmas morning cut through the curtains, painting the living room in pale gold. Snow still clung to the windows, sparkling like tiny diamonds. Sarah stood quietly in the hallway, watching Emily tumble down the stairs, cheeks pink with excitement, tiny feet pounding the floor. Mom, come see," Emily shouted, holding a carefully wrapped present in her hands. Sarah froze for a moment, her heart skipping. "Mom." The word felt heavy, warm, and impossible all at once. Nathan appeared behind her, dressed casually for once, his expression unreadable. But when his eyes landed on Sarah, there was something softer there, a hint of relief, of gratitude, maybe even awe. "Go," he said quietly, nodding toward Emily. "She's ready for you." Sarah knelt as Emily barreled into her arms, nearly knocking her over. "Look, it's for you. For Christmas." Tears pricked Sarah's eyes. Emily's small hands were clutching a hand-painted ornament, a miniature version of the three of them, Nathan, Emily, and Sarah. Emily's voice was urgent, thrilled. "See, it's us. You, me, Daddy." Sarah hugged her tightly. "It's beautiful. Thank you, baby." Emily pulled back, her blue eyes wide and serious. "I want you to stay. Forever. You're my mom." Nathan cleared his throat behind them. Sarah turned slowly. Nathan's usual guarded demeanor had cracked, leaving a vulnerability Sarah had rarely seen. Nathan began, then paused. He ran a hand through his hair, exhaling. "Sarah, I was wrong. About a lot of things. I thought I could handle everything on my own. I thought keeping my past, my mistakes, hidden would protect Emily. But it didn't. It only scared her. And scared you too." Sarah's chest tightened. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. His apology, raw and unpolished, said everything. Nathan stepped closer. "I fired you, yes. I treated you like you were disposable. But you stayed. You didn't leave. And in doing so, you became part of this family." Emily tugged at Sarah's sleeve. "Mom, he's telling the truth." Nathan smiled faintly, almost painfully. "Sarah, will you forgive me?" The room was quiet except for the faint crackle of the fireplace. Snow fell silently outside. Sarah looked from Nathan to Emily. From the past, she had escaped to the life she had almost never dared to imagine. And in that moment, everything crystallized. "I forgive you," she whispered. Nathan exhaled, relief flooding his features. "Then stay. Stay here. With us. If you'll have us." Sarah's lips curved in a smile. "I will." Emily squealed and hugged both of them at once. "Best Christmas ever," Nathan chuckled, pulling Sarah gently toward the couch. "I think we still have a lot to figure out, he said. Sarah nodded, resting her head lightly against his shoulder. We'll figure it out together. Outside, the world was white and silent, but inside, the house was alive. Alive with laughter, warmth, and love, the kind that couldn't be bought, borrowed, or erased. For the first time in years, Sarah felt home. And as Emily pressed the ornament into her hands once more, whispering, "Mom, you're my mom," Sarah realized something she hadn't in a long time. Some families aren't born, they're made. And some gifts are far bigger than anything wrapped in paper or tied with ribbon. This Christmas, for the first time, Sarah knew she was exactly where she was meant to be.
1 year later. The snow had melted completely this time. Spring light poured through the kitchen windows, catching the dust motes that danced above the counters where Sarah stood, flour dusting her hands. Emily's voice carried from the living room, bright and unmistakable, "Mom. Are you almost done with the cake?" A year. It had been exactly 1 year since that Christmas Eve when Sarah stood outside the iron gates, sick and alone, not knowing that her life was about to be irrevocably changed. The calendar on the wall marked the anniversary carefully. Not with dread anymore, but with gratitude. Sarah smiled as she pressed the last of the frosting onto the 3-layer cake. Emily had insisted on 3, one for each of them. The kitchen was warm, filled with the smell of vanilla and butter, and the soft hum of life being lived. Real life. The kind with laughter that didn't feel stolen, with mornings that didn't start with fear. "Almost there, baby," Sarah called back, still marveling at how easily the word baby came now. How natural it felt. How it filled something inside her that had been hollow for so long. The front door opened. Nathan stepped in, briefcase in hand, tie already loosened. He paused. In the doorway, the way he always did when he came home, taking in the scene, Sarah in the kitchen, Emily bouncing around the living room, the ordinary miracle of a family gathered together. His expression shifted. It always did at these moments. A softness that made him look younger, less burdened. Less like the man who had fired Sarah on Christmas Eve without blinking. That man felt like a ghost now. A cautionary tale from another lifetime. "Hey," Nathan said, setting down his briefcase. He didn't kiss Sarah on the cheek immediately, the way he did most days. Instead, he just looked at her. "How was your day?" This question was more loaded than it seemed. Sarah knew it. They both knew it. Because there had been a reason he asked. A reason he checked in like this, every single day. A reason he still carried the weight of what he'd almost lost. "Good," Sarah said simply. "Emily helped me prep. She's been a little general about this whole anniversary thing." Nathan smiled faintly. "She's been counting down. Marked it on the calendar weeks ago." He paused, then added quietly, "I almost fired you on this day, Sarah. Did you know that?" The words hung in the air, softer than they should have been, but honest in a way that still sometimes caught Sarah off guard. Nathan had spent the last year being honest about his past, about his mistakes. It wasn't easy for him. But he did it anyway. "I know," Sarah said, not looking away from the cake. "You've apologized for that more times than either of us can count." "I know I have," Nathan replied, stepping closer. "And I'll apologize for it 1,000 more times if you need me to. But I want you to understand something, Sarah. Every single day that you choose to stay, every day you choose us, that's the greatest gift. Because I didn't deserve it. And somehow, you saw past that." Sarah turned to face him. This was the rhythm of their year, moments of acknowledging the past while building toward the future. "You made a choice too, Nathan. That night, in the snow. You chose to stop that car. You chose to bring me home. You didn't have to do that." "I did, though," Nathan said quietly. "When Emily pointed at you, when she said you looked cold, something in me just knew. I knew that firing you was the biggest mistake of my life. But I didn't know how to fix it. And then you were there, like the universe was giving me a second chance. Emily's voice interrupted them. Mom. Dad. Come see what I made. Nathan and Sarah exchanged a look, the kind of look that came from a shared understanding. That was still relatively new, still fragile, but growing stronger every day. They walked together into the living room, where Emily had arranged a series of drawings across the coffee table. They were all variations on the same theme, the three of them together. In some, they were at the beach. In others, in the mountains. In one, they stood in front of a house, a bigger house. With more rooms. What's this, Em? Sarah asked, kneeling down to see the drawings better. It's our future, Emily said matter-of-factly. I've been planning. We need a bigger house. For when we adopt the other kids. Sarah and Nathan both froze. This was news. What other kids? Nathan asked, though there was already a smile playing at his lips. He knew Emily. She was full of surprises. The kids who don't have families, Emily said, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. Like Mom didn't have one when we found her. So we should help the other kids too. The words hung in the air between them. And in that moment, Sarah understood something fundamental about who Emily was and who she had become, by extension, just by being in this family. Emily had learned compassion from her own loss. She had learned generosity from her father's willingness to extend grace to a stranger. She had learned love from watching Sarah accept her without conditions, without walls. Nathan looked at Sarah. Sarah looked at Nathan. And without a word being spoken, they both knew they were standing at a threshold. A new chapter, waiting to be written. Let's talk about it, Nathan said finally, sitting down on the couch. But first, we need to celebrate today. We need to remember exactly what brought us here. What changed our lives. Sarah carried the cake into the living room, and Emily squealed with delight. They lit the candles together, 3 candles, one for each of them, though Sarah noticed Nathan had placed a 4th at the edge, unlit. She raised an eyebrow. For the kids Emily wants to bring home, he said simply. A reminder of what's possible. They sang the song together, off-key and imperfect and absolutely perfect. Emily made her wish, eyes squeezed tight, face solemn with concentration. She didn't tell anyone what it was. Because wishes were supposed to be secret. But Sarah had a feeling she knew what it was about. As they ate cake, Emily perched between them on the couch, Nathan told a story. It wasn't the full story, not yet. But he was getting there. Piece by piece, session by session with the therapist he'd started seeing in March, he was excavating the reasons behind his coldness that day. The pressure at work. The anniversary of his wife's death approaching. The fear that he was failing Emily. The way he'd turned that fear into cruelty because cruelty was easier than vulnerability. Your mom, Nathan said, looking at Sarah with that soft expression again, your mom didn't deserve any of that. But she's here anyway. She loves you. She loves us. Even though she didn't have to. Emily reached over and patted her father's hand. You were sad, she said wisely. Mom was sad too. But now we're happy. We are, Nathan agreed. And it's because your mom made a choice. Every single day, she makes the choice to stay. To love us. To build a family with us. Sarah felt tears prickling her eyes. She was tired of crying over this story. But the tears weren't sad ones anymore. They were the kind that came from finally feeling like she belonged somewhere. Later, after Emily was tucked in bed, after 2 stories, a glass of water, and 3 false, just. One more thing, delays. Sarah and Nathan sat together on the back porch. The spring evening was cool but not cold. The sky was streaked with the last colors of sunset, and somewhere in the neighborhood, a dog barked. The world continued on, ordinary and beautiful. She wants to expand the family, Nathan said quietly. I wasn't expecting that. She learned it from watching you, Sarah replied. The way you took me in. The way you chose love over fear. Nathan was quiet for a long moment. I don't know if I can be a good father to more children. I still have so much I'm working through. We all do, Sarah said. But you're doing the work. That's what matters. That's what Emily sees. That's what makes her brave enough to imagine a family even bigger than this one. Nathan reached over and took Sarah's hand. It was a simple gesture, but it carried the weight of everything they'd been through. I love you, he said. I don't know if I've said it enough. I should say it more. I love you too, Sarah replied. And she meant it. Not the love of a housekeeper for her employer. Not the love born of gratitude or desperation. But real love. The kind that survived argument and doubt and the everyday challenges of building a life with someone. They sat together as the sun finished setting. As darkness crept across the sky. As the first stars appeared, tentative and hopeful. A year ago, Nathan said softly, I thought my life was fixed. I thought I had everything figured out. I thought I could keep Emily safe by keeping the world at a distance. And now? Sarah asked. Now I know that safety comes from connection. From letting people in. From being brave. Enough to love, even when love is terrifying. He squeezed her hand. Even when it comes. Dressed like a housekeeper in a worn coat, sitting alone on a bus bench on Christmas Eve. Sarah laughed, a real laugh, full of joy and wonder at how far they'd come. We're quite the pair, aren't we? Both damaged. Both afraid. Both willing to take the risk anyway. The best pairs usually are, Nathan said. The broken ones. Because we know how precious wholeness is. We know how to fight for it. Inside, they could hear Emily's soft snoring from her upstairs bedroom. The house was quiet around them, but it wasn't the brittle silence of before. It was the warm quiet of a home. Where people who loved each other were sleeping peacefully. Nathan pulled Sarah close, and she rested her head against his shoulder. They didn't need to say anything more. The story had already been written in the way they held each other, in the promises they made with their presence, in the choice to build something real from the ashes of what had been broken. Somewhere in the city, other people were sitting outside, alone on benches. Other people were waiting for someone to see them. Other people were wondering if they would ever feel like they belonged anywhere. But in this house, this warm, imperfect, beautiful house, Sarah had already found her answer. She belonged here. With Nathan. With Emily. With the family they were building, one day at a time. And tomorrow, they would start the conversation about other children. About expanding their circle. About letting love do what it did best, multiply, deepen, and change everything. Because that was the thing about families. They weren't just made of blood or biology. They were made of moments like these. Of choices made and choices honored. Of people seeing each other, really seeing each other, and deciding it was worth the risk to stay. The snow would come again next winter. But when it did, Sarah would watch it fall from the warmth of her home, surrounded by the people she loved. And she would remember the night. That changed everything. The night when cold turned to warmth. When loneliness became belonging. When a fired housekeeper became a mother. And she would be grateful. Every single day, for the rest of her life, she would be grateful.
This has been a journey of redemption, brought to you by Pub Stories. In every life, there is a moment where we are tested, where we must decide if we will be a shield for the vulnerable or a bystander to their pain. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to Pub Stories for more deep dives into the lives of the powerful and the resilient. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a chapter of our human dramas. Share this video with someone who needs to be reminded that second chances are real. At the end of the day, we are all just stories. Make sure yours is one worth telling. If this story moved you, hit that like button. It helps us tell more stories of integrity and hope. And tell me in the comments, what was the hardest, right choice you ever had to make? I read every single one. Thank you for watching Pub Stories. We'll see you in the next one. And if you want a part 2 of the story, tell me in the comment section. Also tell me what you learned from this story. Is the story a positive impact to you or a negative one? It helps us adjust to what you really want. Thank you again, and I will see you soon. This has been a journey of redemption, brought to you by Pub Stories. In every life, there is a moment where we are tested, where we must decide if we will be a shield for the vulnerable or a bystander to their pain. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to Pub Stories for more deep dives into the lives of the powerful and the resilient. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a chapter of our human dramas. Share this video with someone who needs to be reminded that second chances are real. At the end of the day, we are all just stories. Make sure yours is one worth telling. If this story moved you, hit that like button. It helps us tell more stories of integrity and hope. And tell me in the comments, what was the hardest, right choice you ever had to make? I read every single one. Thank you for watching Pub Stories. We'll see you in the next one. And if you want a part 2 of the story, tell me in the comment section. Also tell me what you learned from this story. Is the story a positive impact to you or a negative one? It helps us adjust to what you really want. Thank you again, and I will see you soon. Please do well to subscribe. It helps us keep going. Your support matters a lot to Pub Stories. May God bless everyone watching or listening.